issue of pharmacare. You know, the Liberals recently brought in something that says anybody who's under 25 is now covered for a regimen of, I think, 4,000 or so of the mostly used medications in the province. Who here would get rid of pharmacare? Everybody's keeping the current pharmacare plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We'll have to see. I would have to, once I assume office, we'll have to see and do a line-by-line analysis. We can't spend on everything. We have to do a line-by-line analysis. That being said, healthcare, I don't want to touch. I know the spending will always continue. We have an aging population. And, you know, as a Christian, as you brought up before, you know, I do believe in that adage, I am my brother's keeper. So we have to help those who are most in need.
Okay. Another Liberal plan that was recently brought in was the increase in the minimum wage. Who here would not bring in the next increase in the minimum wage, which is set to go in January 2019?
I wouldn't.
You would not? You would not?
No.
Mr. Ford, what would you do with it?
Well, first of all, my heart breaks for these people that are making minimum wage at the time, $12, and then jumps up to $14. They're leaving with about $50 more in their pocket from their office or their factory. The only people that are benefiting, they're getting a tax grab. It's the government that's increasing their taxes by 30-some-odd%. What I would do, I would cut the tax to zero for the people who are making $14 an hour. That will benefit the companies. It will benefit the person leaving their office or the factory. At the end of the day, under the Doug Ford administration, they'll leave their factory or their office with more money in their pocket, because I don't believe in having a tax grab on the most vulnerable people in society.
Okay, but I'm asking about the minimum wage. The next
increase
does not go in.
A 0% tax. They will not have to pay tax.
Okay, how about over here?
Look, the manner in which the minimum wage increase was brought in was very drastic and very sudden, and has crippled a lot of small businesses in Ontario, which is the backbone for our economy. So with regards to the next increase that's supposed to take place, I would hold off on that. Would I repeal the minimum wage increase? No, I wouldn't. But we have to be very careful. We can't just all of a sudden throw this kind of burden onto small businesses. We have to be very delicate. So the increase, no, but we'll keep it as it is for now.
What's your position?
I feel the same way. I think that this was brought in without adequate time for businesses to be prepared for it. It's very difficult for them to absorb an increase of this magnitude. I think that the next increase, we all want the minimum wage to increase, but I think the next increase is also a very large one. I would want to see it brought in more gradually, so I would hold off on the increase for 2019.
For how long?
Until our economy can manage it, until businesses can manage it, because I've heard from many businesses that this is really about to put them under. We don't want to lose more businesses in Ontario. Kathleen Wynne's already done a good enough job on that, so we need to keep our businesses whole and hearty.
You say until the economy's better. They announced today our economy grew at 2.9% last year, which is pretty buoyant, relatively speaking. So if not now, when?
But we have businesses that are on the edge right now. And what we're seeing is, as a result of this increase, they're laying off some workers or they're decreasing their hours. So that's not helping anybody. We need to make sure that the businesses can absorb these increases and stay in business so people have jobs.
Caroline Mulrooney, what's your minimum wage position?
Well, I think that Bill 148, the minimum wage law, is a classic example of the way the Liberals have been governing this province, making decisions that help them in the short term, in this case, their electoral chances, and hurt the rest of us in the long term. And small businesses were suffering. They had options before this year to implement a minimum wage increase, and they passed on it. Instead, they did it, as we've been saying, too quickly. It was too much, too soon. But that said, $14 an hour came in on January 1st. I'm in favor of phasing in to the next increase. I believe that over 4 years, I believe that everyone should we want everyone to be able to earn a living wage and be able to pay their expenses and to participate in the growth of our economy.
So 4 years to get to $15?
Yes, a quarter a year.
A quarter a year, okay.
But this is a classic example of the way the Liberals have been implementing policy, and without consulting small business owners, without consulting medium-sized business owners who are really affected by not only the increase of the minimum wage, but all the other costs associated with the other measures in that bill that are hurting them. And so we've got to work with businesses to find a way to help them alleviate the pressure. They deal with a lot of red tape that has a lot of costs associated with that. So we're going to look at reducing red tape significantly to alleviate the burden on businesses.
This is another example of how all of you candidates have said tonight the Liberals haven't consulted on this. I mean, the facts are different. The facts are that the Liberals have consulted. They have just disagreed with those with whom they have consulted. They have chosen to go in a different direction. I guess the question is, you can consult, but at some point you got to make a decision, right?
Well, in the case of the minimum wage law, they looked at it in 2013 and 2014, and you're right, they did consult and they did receive advice from people and decided that instead they would index it to inflation. And a few months before an election, they decided to implement it. So you're right, there is consultation, and they've got to take the advice that works. But the problem with it is that businesses had already laid out their plans, their business plans. And so when you introduce this kind of legislation that is so important, that really affects their bottom line and their costs, they don't have time to adjust.